Welcome to Shiftu, the Unique Perspective podcast. Today, I have a very special guest. He's not only a good friend of mine, a brother, but he's also and just an amazing mind, CEO of Junub Games, and a serial entrepreneur. My brother, Lual Mayen.
Man, thank you so much, man.
Welcome.
I cannot, I cannot believe you're finally making like a podcast in person. I remember the first conversation we had was
Right.
incredible, man. Like, so I'm really excited to be part of the second conversation now in person.
No, absolutely, man. I'm
Yeah,
glad you got right into it because,
yeah,
I think often when we're in the same spaces
yeah,
and people ask how we met, etc.,
yeah,
I always go back to that day back in 2019
exactly.
in Minneapolis. You
South
know what I mean?
Sudan Unite, man. I miss that a
Absolutely,
lot.
absolutely. And
You
before
know,
we kind of get a little too deep into it, but
yeah,
just tell us a little bit about yourself.
yeah,
Obviously, you have a very inspiring and
mm,
just an amazing story. So just take us a little bit back. Where did it all start from? Obviously,
yeah,
we're both from South Sudan,
yeah.
but we're here in DC now, just trying to make the most out of it. So just give us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. Like, over the years, of course, like, for the audience, of course, like, my name is Lual Mayen, of course, I'm from South Sudan. A lot of people know that. I grew up in Uganda and right now live in DC, of course. And really like, for people who really don't know, like how even my family ended up in Uganda, of course, of civil war, they were able to like, try to find a place of refuge, for them to like start a new life. And from there, like, I was born on the way as my family actually was. We're finding a place of refuge, and I spent like almost 22 years in a refugee camp. So that was like my home. And from there, I was able, like everybody, was able to like try, what can I do? What's my next move as a child? Growing up in a refugee camp was like not easy because, first of all, like, basic need necessities were not like we didn't have a lot of them, but we were real grateful about everything that we had. So we were able to learn, and that's why today, I'm able to become an entrepreneur. So yeah, so I grew up in a refugee camp and just do whatever I had that I had at that moment. Yeah.
Right. And before we kind of get a little too deep into like that very unique part of your story, I just want to obviously just to be able to add a little more depth into this conversation. You and I both talked about this in depth. Obviously, we are both from South Sudan, and the reasons why our families left South Sudan is because of the war, the civil war, obviously that raged on for decades. And for me, my family happened to be in North Sudan, where yours were in South Sudan. And we talked about this because, of course, I wrote about it in my book, Shift 2, my unique journey from Sudan, Egypt to the US, which kind of details my journey as well and how, my family went to northern part of exiting through the north, right? Which is a lot of families that went into Egypt, into Libya, and all the way into the Middle East, etc. But your journey took you south, right? And a lot of our brethren and our sisters have gone to Uganda, Kenya, Ethiopia, etc. So I think it's kind of I like to look at it as more of a holistic sort of, two sides of the same story, so to speak. And we obviously bonded a lot over that.
Yeah.
But, tell us a little bit about, when you were in the refugee camp. And obviously you talked about how you taught yourself how to code. I mean, I can't even code right now.
I mean, like we live in a very interesting world right now.
Right.
AI where everything is easy.
Yeah.
But first of all, going back, like I always tell people that being in refugee camp was not a choice. And also being my family actually living a place like that they love. They didn't just wake up in the morning and say, oh, like I'm trying to find a place, a new place. No, it was like South Sudan was their home. Like grandparents were there, like like it's something that they love, and for them being able to like start a new life for them was really, really very hard for them, especially. But like I always ask my mom, my dad all the time, and I'm like, like first of all, for me as a child, like I grew up in a new environment where I really don't know what other environment where my family were during that time. So, but the stories that I used to hear, like, it was so beautiful. They loved it. The culture was amazing. They miss a lot of things about the place that they left. And that kind of like inspired me a lot, in the refugee camp to just like, okay, uh, I was content with what I had as a child because there was no other choice.
Hmm.
The only
That's what you
choice,
knew,
yeah, it was
right?
all I knew.
That's your
Like I said, yeah,
experience.
like I remember, like the only thing we would do, man, like you wake up in the morning at 8 a.m. just to go play soccer, or maybe go to the river and catch some fish. Like it's
Life is simple.
yeah, like life is simple, and because we didn't have anything else, and of course, like a lot of people think that living in a refugee camp is a temporary thing where you're going to be there for 3 to 5 years and so on. Like I spent 22 years,
That's
maybe
amazing.
I was, I stepped my foot when I was maybe 3 months. There are people that are still there that are like 70 and they were like, of course it's the new home for them. So to me during that time, I'm like, okay, fine. Like, what do I have to do in my new home? This is my new place. This is
Hmm.
like everything that I know. My sibling are growing up there, like I have uncles there, like it's everything to me. So I didn't have this idea of like, oh, I want to go to school to, all right, I need to learn in order for me to become an entrepreneur. I'm learning because like
Out of
yeah,
necessity.
yeah, it's very important for me to even speak with the host community.
Hmm.
Yeah, so like everything else just came because of learning. Yeah, you begin to learn like, oh, actually, like school can open doors for you. School can be able to give you an opportunity that instead of being in a refugee camp for years, it can change you to be able to get a job, to be able to be a doctor, to be like,
Hmm.
over the years you get to learn that. But mostly as we were growing up in a refugee camp, the only thing we knew that's our home. Yeah.
That's really phenomenal. I
Yeah.
mean, obviously, like I said, my experience is quite different, but
Mm,
and part of the reason why
mm,
we're doing this now
yeah.
because we've had these conversations
Mm,
over the years,
yes, yeah.
and it was to be, an opportunity for us to sit here,
Exactly.
not only share our stories, but
Mm,
also kind of, be able to send a message to
mm,
perhaps those, like you mentioned,
yeah.
that are still in
Mm,
refugee camp. I mean, we
mm,
happen to live right now in a time where there are more refugees
mm,
probably right now, given all the wars that's going on around the world,
mm,
than anytime probably back in the 90s, sort of the case may be. So I
mm,
think now that we have these opportunities to be able to directly communicate and
mm,
share these stories,
mm,
I think there's a little girl out there, a little boy
mm,
out there,
mm,
anywhere in the world that
mm.
really looks at, oh man, look at
Yeah,
Lual Mayen.
yeah.
He's
Mm,
gone from the refugee camp that he grew
mm,
up in
mm.
and now is changing lives and speaking to you know
But
millions of people
yeah,
in different ways. So
and
that's
that's,
very
yeah,
inspiring.
exactly. Yeah, that's something that really like made me happy when I first met you. And one of it is being able to understand somebody that has been through what you've been through, and be able to do like incredible stuff. So like it's inspired me a lot to be able to see also other refugees doing things that I been writing a book. I've never thought like I would read a book from from someone who was was displaced by war before, like even from South Sudan and stuff, thing like that. And I think we spoke before, and I say like where we are right now, it's a great space. And I remember mentioning to you when I became the CNN champion for Kenya. I remember making a statement that we are not here to survive, we're here to thrive, right? Whenever whatever we went through, like it made us strong, and it also made us to understand that life is not what it just give to us. You can make the best out of it. Like, and it's also our responsibility to create a sustainable future for other people, the people that come after us. And that's why, like for example, like meeting at South Sudan Unite, someone like Lual Deng being able to like, yo, I'm not just going to be 2 or 3 people in the NBA. Let me create a sustainable future for other people. Same thing to you, like, and let me create a podcast so that we can be able to like tell this story, so that when other people that are coming after us are able to like hear this thing. So it's about like telling stories. It's not just vulnerability. It's a sign of leadership.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Like
And and to your point, for
mm,
me, the art storytelling, and
mm,
these are sort of things that I always felt like still connected me back
mm,
home.
yeah,
I mean, I still remember stories, as you probably could relate,
yeah,
that our grandparents or like the elders in the community, etc., telling you
mm,
things as a kid that you believe. I mean, now that you look
exactly,
back, it's like,
yeah,
wait,
yeah.
that sounds a little extra, but back then it's like it's true. But
Yeah.
then those memories kind of like you hold with you and kind of like, brings you closer to other people and takes you back and kind of like, really ties you back to your roots. But to go back to your point about, South Sudan Unite. I mean, I think I mentioned to you that I had no intentions of going to it. I really just happened to, take a leap of faith because two of my close friends, childhood friends who I haven't seen in years, mentioned that they would be there. And so I was like, man, I need to see these guys. And so that really inspired me to kind of like make them, take that journey or take that trip. And then I happened to meet you. I happened to meet Lual and so many other, phenomenal, young South Sudanese that are doing amazing things. And to me, that really kind of reignited that kind of like, man, that like this is phenomenal. And I know that for us, being here, it's a very unlikely reality, but we are here now. And so to just kind of go back to that, what was your transition like? Because I got my own stories and I talked to you, but yeah, but obviously having to leave, Uganda, and I know you were in South Africa for some time, and then ultimately ended up here in DC. What was that journey like for you? Because I know it was probably fast paced, but what was your experience like?
Yeah, like to be honest, like to me, I felt it was easy because I was ready for the change, right? Of course, like, I remember like when my game went viral, right?
Mm.
Like, I remember waking up and the next thing, bro, like, it's like email everywhere, like Germany, like, Netherlands, like, San Francisco, and then and I'm reading them in a refugee camp, and then like the next thing is like one of my friend, um, he's my friend now, but during that time, he just found my game on after it went viral. I remember we were like, "Yo, we are having a conference. And we want you to come and speak at this conference in South Africa." And I'm like, "What? I've never like like what am I going to talk about,
Yeah.
man? Like I've never stood in front of people before, like,
Right,
and I
right.
haven't talked about yeah about taking cost about my game, and I was really excited. I was like, like I had this opportunity for the first time in my family, someone like traveling abroad using a plane, like being able, like it was just that excitement, but at the same time, I didn't know what to do, and so I just say, okay, yeah, like let me go to South Africa, like like I was well raised, like so I didn't feel like I had my father used to advise me about things to do. So
Mm.
so like
You already had the playbook.
yeah, I already had a playbook. Yeah, I see, of course, yeah. So it was really easy. I was able to go to South Africa, met a lot of amazing people that actually believed in me and they were ready to support me, show me around and give me advice. And after that, I was able to come to the US as well. Like also did the same thing, was able to meet with right people that want to give me advice and be able to tell me what's the right thing to do or not, and then that kind of helped me to transition. I remember like when I first came to the US, I didn't know anybody at all.
Mm.
And I remember like I had to go on Facebook and like, search for like search for people, and I end up like, finding my friend Dow. And I was like, I remember texting down like, yo man, like my name is Lual, and then you were like, I noticed your name already, you're from South Sudan, and I'm like, yo, we
And
should
then
catch
gave it
up,
away.
yeah, like
Yeah.
gave it away, and from there, like, so I always this idea that it's hard to make it alone when you're transitioning.
Mm.
You need to make sure that you have the right people around you to be able to help you. Of course, it's going to be a long journey of making mistake and
Of
so,
course, yeah, that's
but
life.
like yeah, but when you're starting something new, I think it's very important to be able to find the right people that can help you like to transition into something new. Yeah, so I think that kind of like helped me a lot.
No, that's phenomenal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
that's
I mean,
powerful.
like like to me, like even meeting you, like I know a lot of young people are listening to us, and so like what like, and I'm somebody who believe a lot in advice that I get from people
Mm.
sometimes because I thought like I got everything by myself, but like what advice have you ever gotten from someone that actually making you like doing all this amazing stuff now, like like let's tell me
Well,
like honestly
the crazy thing is,
yeah.
literally, that was my next question
Oh
to you.
really?
But, but
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's a
Mm,
phenomenal question. I think one of the best advice I've gotten, over the years is
mm.
just truly keeping an open mind
Oh,
and
wow.
just
Mm,
being able to receive, because you never know what God may have
mm.
in store for you, and
Amen. Mm,
we don't know in what form or what day it may be delivered.
mm,
So just kind of keeping an open mind and just being able and willing to receive
mm,
truly,
mm,
allows you to just make the most out of life. And case
mm,
in point, honestly, and I
mm,
told you,
mm.
I've been trying to move to DC since, you know what I mean, like so long. Because I remember
Yeah.
the first time I came here, it
Mm,
was it was on a school trip
mm,
back in 2012 rather. And we were here on a school trip, graduating class, my
mm,
undergrad, and we were here meeting some of our alum to just kind of get connected and
mm,
welcome us into the
mm,
to the professional world. And I fell in love with DC, such a
mm.
diverse place, so much going on here.
Yeah.
Um, and at that point, I was just like, oh, I want to be
Yeah,
here.
yeah, exactly.
And it just didn't pan out that way. But then we met, and you
Mm,
told me you were here. I said, "Man, I've been trying to move here." And then, of
yeah.
course, I came to
Yeah.
visit, and
Mm,
lo and behold, a couple of
mm,
years later, I got the opportunity to move here, and here we are
mm,
now.
mm.
So I know you and I, we can talk
Yeah,
forever.
I know, right? Yeah.
But
This is
obviously, this is our very first episode,
yeah,
and
yeah.
I'm sure we're gonna have many more to come.
Millions of
And
them. I know that.
of
Yeah.
course. So I got way more questions, and we're gonna talk more about that.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
let me flip the script on that.
yeah,
I already
yeah.
mentioned, obviously, have
Mm,
we will have, I'm sure,
mm,
plenty of
mm,
young men and women and just people out there in the
mm,
world who are inspired by your story,
mm,
who are trying to figure out their own path and their own way right now.
mm.
What advice would you give to them if they happen to be just at home or on the computer, whatever,
Mm,
just watching you speak and kind of like hearing about your journey? What advice, kind of, if they want to pursue their careers or their dreams, whatever the
mm.
case may be, what would that be?
Yeah, that's a very good question that I'm actually trying to figure out too. You know, like because like we're in this journey of growth.
Mm,
But I think my advice is is an advice I will give to myself actually right now too.
mm,
Because over the years I've learned a lot of things. And I've had the honor of like meeting incredible people, mentors, and people that make me shape my uh, the my future and the way I want to do things and so on.
mm,
But looking back at where I started, like I mentioned before, like living in a refugee camp for me or starting making game was my first my first thought was not, hey, I'm making game in order for me to sustain my life, or maybe I'm gonna make money or like I'm gonna have a career in it. To me during that time was something that I was passionate about, and I wanted to create something that uh, that can be able to live, help communities understand. Because to me, one thing is I love video games because of the the opportunity and the power they have of telling stories, right? And to me, that has always evolved around my life.
mm,
I love telling stories in different medium, and I thought like the best way is to be able to find a medium that can be able to like help other people. Of course, people can tell stories through podcasts, through movies,
mm.
through like different things. But to me, during that, I'm just knowing that this is a really great medium for me, and identifying that and making sure that I had the passion about it, because that passion is going to help me a lot to do whatever it takes to succeed in that particular project.
Mm.
You know, and having that passion was able to help me to bring me where I am, to right now, and that's why I'm I'm giving this advice.
Yeah.
So I think like, and also thinking about like the thing that we can control, but at the end of the day, we have almost like 80% of things that we can control. So it's just to make sure to identify those opportunities and be able to know that, you have what it takes. I know like we live in a world right now where things are not in the right way, of course, but the best thing to do is like, never give up. Make sure like you have the right tool, be thirsty for knowledge, be able to like, there's ChatGPT now. Before like we didn't have like I remember like for me to learn how to code, I used to work 3 hours per day to go and charge my computer, right? And because I was thirsty for knowledge, I want to learn something. But right now in the world that we are in, like everything is there. You just it's just like you just need to find that particular project or the career path that you want to achieve. Yeah, I think that's a advice that I would give to myself right now, and I would also give to myself before. I gave
No,
to myself before. Yeah,
no, that's phenomenal.
yeah,
Well, I think there is no need to add any
yeah.
other
No,
questions.
well,
Like I
yeah,
said, we can
yeah,
carry
like,
and we
yeah,
will
like,
carry this
yeah,
conversation again.
yeah,
But Lual,
yeah.
thank you so much for
Mm,
joining us.
mhm.
Again, I'm so excited that you are officially my first guest.
Okay,
And
thanks.
please make sure that you're back here because we have so much to talk about.
Yeah,
But thank you for joining Shiftu, the Unique
yeah.
Perspective podcast. And that's that.
Oh, thank you, man. Bam.
Yeah. Highly favored.